Are you a new home buyer and you've been struggling with some pests or even tortoises on your lot that you're looking to build on? Well, today I interviewed Cory with Wildlife Works, and they specialize in tortoise relocation. They also specialize in dealing with rodents and all kinds of different types of pests. So I highly recommend you check them out. We answered some of your questions that people put in, so I hope you enjoy. All right, Cory, so tell us a little bit about how you actually got into this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to school for wildlife management. I always had an interest and a passion for outdoors and conservation. And after college, I got a job working in bird mitigation, which is capturing, removing, relocating birds that were actually captured inside of commercial facilities. It's kind of a weird niche industry that exists. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I loved the problem solving aspect. I loved that we were able to help wildlife in a unique situation. And from there, I spent a couple years with that company until I found a position with Fish and Wildlife and decided to go after my dream of being a biologist, which is what I had intended to go to school for. And I enjoyed it. I did a couple of years with Fish and Wildlife as a biologist, and then they moved me up here into Marion County to work for hunting and game management. I did that for a couple of years and then decided that I saw a real gap in the industry for conflict mitigation with wildlife. And within that gap, I missed some of that aspect of the problem solving back when I was doing the bird abatement. And with that passion for wildlife, I decided to start a wildlife trapping company here. And within 3 months, my husband left his job and decided to hop on board. And we've been going ever since, chugging along. It's been a great ride.
Okay, that's awesome. So where were you before?
Before I was born and raised in Northern Virginia, and I went to school in West Virginia and spent a lot of time up in the Northeast until 2017. I moved to Florida.
Did you move here for work?
Yeah, I moved here to work for Fish and Wildlife. I took a position with Fish and Wildlife.
So you kind of got here before COVID.
I was here before COVID. I saw COVID, but I also, since I have family up north, saw the big difference between down here and up there. Yeah. It was a very big difference.
Yeah, it was really, really huge. A lot of people, I mean, that's why a lot of people moved down here.
It is.
It had a lot to do with that. So what did you do I know you were a biologist, but what did you specifically do? What did you study something specific with Fish and Game or?
Basically on their Nuisance program.
Okay.
So I was the wildlife assistance biologist when I started with them. And what essentially that means is anyone who calls in with a wildlife concern, that biologist is going to answer their questions and help them find solutions. Unfortunately, Fish and Wildlife doesn't have the resources to step in when they're really in some of these situations where they might be needed. So that's where a conflict mitigator like myself or a trapper or anyone else might be able to come in and take care of those problems.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I know it's it's probably a fun job. I know it makes me think of something funny. Whenever we were driving between here and Gainesville, you have Paynes Prairie, and a lot of the college students now have decided it was this brainy idea to start fishing.
Oh.
Right there,
right there on the on 75?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, not on 75, but on 441. So 441, on the back road. And I remember we called and we were we really should call, because I'm not usually one to call people, but I'm we really should call because these kids are going to get eaten by a gator. Because I grew up going through there, it's not uncommon to see the gators literally climb up those fences, go across and go to the other side. That happens all the time. My dad's seen it, I've seen it. It's common there. And I'm y'all are going to get eaten. Don't do that. So we called and I was I kind of feel bad, but at the same time, what are y'all doing?
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy. Yeah. So I'm sure you got some crazy stories.
We do, and believe it or not, well, it actually, maybe it's not so surprising. The majority of the crazy stories are based more around people than around wildlife.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
But we try to find common ground between the two.
Yeah, I know. People are they do some crazy things.
They do.
Especially with alligators, and mostly, in my opinion, alligators, I've seen some of the most wildest things where people feed them or they treat them as pets or they do whatever they do. And I'm guys, what are you doing?
Right.
It's not. No.
It's not, yeah. And unfortunately that we see that a lot with all species, not just gators. And that's one of the quickest ways to essentially, you're effectively killing that animal, because once it becomes dependent on people, it can't be wilded up, you can't rewild it. And either it's going to be living with you forever, which is not legal unless you have specific permitting. And even then, it's typically supposed to be captive bred. Or they're going to try and wild it up and it's going to go to someone else's house and they're going to freak out because there's a raccoon or an alligator trying to get in their house. They're not sure why. So if we can, as little as possible, have less interactions directly with wildlife from afar.
From afar, yes, please, Lord. I don't know. I don't get it maybe because I grew up on a farm, so maybe I have a different view on animals. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I've grown up in Florida my whole life. I'm generationally from Florida, so maybe that's part of it too. But I'm just people, what are you doing? I just watched them do these things. Even when we were when I was a kid, we went to Yellowstone, and the most stupidest things people do with buffalo, elk, and I'm like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want to be that close to them because they're wild animals. They're you never know what they're going to do. Unpredictable. I'm like, what are you guys doing? It was like insane. I remember one time we were in Yellowstone and we pulled off on the side of the road because there was a moose like in the water, but he was a long way off. Like you could see him, but you were definitely plenty of space between him and us, everybody. And there's a lot of people that pulled over to take pictures, whatever. They're probably used to it, honestly. But this man started tramping through the water.
Yikes.
At this bull moose. And we were like, this man is going to die. What is he doing? So I'm sure like in your line of work, you deal with a lot of people that do a lot of just thoughtless.
It's typically with good intention. Because, I mean, a lot of us are wildlife lovers, and typically in those situations, it's people who do really care about wildlife, but there are resources that are just better equipped. We work really closely with Rescuing Ocala Wildlife, and they do a phenomenal job of handling any of our injured orphaned wildlife. And then, and vice versa, if there's a situation that they can't handle, they give us a call, and we're able to we transport hawks for them a lot. And things like that. So there are resources out there. I don't advise trying to take those on yourself because it's a lot more than you may realize. And then on top of there just being like a concern for safety from like the unknown of a wild animal, there's a lot of disease. So zoonotic diseases are a real thing. And especially something like a raccoon that everyone thinks is really cute and cuddly when they're little. They do harbor rabies, they do harbor distemper, and they can have raccoon roundworm, which is actually one of the that's the ones I would definitely wouldn't want to mess with, is a raccoon roundworm, because that's not something that's easily to take care of.
I know it was a trend there for a while for like, and I even like know people that I grew up with that used to feed like possums and raccoons. I always thought they were so crazy. Like, I'm just like, what are you guys doing? Like, it is, I guess they are cute. They are cute.
Oh, they're definitely cute.
But like, cute. Like, I don't know. I don't really want them in my
your yard.
The cuteness for those animals go away when you grow up on a farm and you literally know that raccoons and possums will most literally pick a chicken out of a hole this big, like smaller than that. Chicken wire is like really tiny, and they will literally like just pick the chicken apart.
Just the head. They'll just go for the head
everything,
first.
And then just keep pulling bits and pieces through it. Like when you know that those animals do that, I think the cuteness like they're still cute, but like I don't know, you like have like this weird thing of like they are. You definitely realize
a wild animal.
You know that they're a wild animal. There's like no questioning of that. I'm like it's kind of gruesome. That was like wild whenever they were doing that, because it became a thing. I'm sure you deal with a lot, especially with Ocala growing, but Volusia County at the time was kind of going through what Ocala's going through now.
Yeah.
And so we just had a lot of people that were still having farms, which we still do. And of course, raccoons and possums become more of a thing as we have more growth. It's just kind of how it goes. Yeah. And so that became like a really big thing that you had to deal with and combating. And how are you going to not, obviously you're not going to trap, kill, do whatever to every one of them. That's impossible. Like those things happen in the middle of the night. Sometimes even the dogs don't catch them. Like, they're sneaky. They do what they do. And so when you have to deal with them, it can be quite intrusive anyway. But I'm sure you deal with a lot of people that, are having more influx of needing to have animals removed.
Yeah, what we see a lot is the more development that happens, the more that wildlife is obviously going to be pushed out of its natural habitat. And unfortunately, our houses just provide, especially the attic space, provides a perfect habitat for them, that there's no predators, there's shelter, typically within easy access of food and water. So that's the reason that they're going into the homes. It's not necessarily because there's something in your home that they're looking for, or that it's not a cleanliness factor. It's just a resource that's available to them. And mitigating that problem before it becomes a problem is the best way to handle it. You can still keep raccoons in your neighborhood and have your house sealed up so that it won't cause a problem in the future where they're destroying your ductwork, your attic, and having kits up there. That's not something that most people want to deal with.
No, I'm sure not. How do they usually what are some ways that they end up getting into homes easily?
Yeah, the most common is actually an eave return. So it's anywhere where your home has shingle that meets soffit, and it makes kind of it'll make an angle like this. The soffit is pliable, so you can move that up. And we have videos of raccoons actively pushing up and looking for weak spots. So as soon as they find those weak spots, and they're strong, they're real strong, they'll take it and they'll rip it. So if you see, it's an easy indicator for us when we go to a home and someone's like, I don't know what happened to my soffit. And I'm like, I do. Pretty quickly you can tell what they've been doing. But then like squirrels and rodents only need, rats, anything greater than 1/4 of an inch. Squirrels a little bit bigger, but it doesn't take much. And if there's that little wiggle room, they'll push right up and head on in.
Yeah, no, that's like crazy. I know, speaking of raccoons being strong, we had the farm, unfortunately, where Sunset Hills is now, which is D.R. Horton in Summerfield. That property there was like a huge cattle farm forever. And it was kind of an issue in some ways because it was so big and there was so many resources. So a lot of times it was attracting for coyotes and for other animals.
Yeah.
But when they demolished all of that and it became homes, obviously all those animals went somewhere, and they ended up going, and a lot of them in our property, because that's just kind of how it went. My dad, they couldn't get in it, but they would move it. So we had like a big like 20-gallon like trash can, 50-gallon, like big for like, the dog food and like all the other foods that we had for the animals. But you know, when you put the lid on pretty tight and you bungee strap it like we did, they really couldn't get into it.
Right.
My dad put cameras in there because he's like, what is like picking this thing up and moving it? Because it would be like moved like set like significantly.
Oh yeah.
And this like big old wreck, like huge, would like bear hug it and like move it, and it was the most insane thing I've ever watched.
It's impressive. It really is.
It's like crazy how strong they are.
Yeah.
I mean, they're big, but they're not like a bear.
No.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you expect a bear to be able to do that kind of stuff, where like a raccoon, like, I mean, it was a big raccoon, but still.
They're stronger than you think.
Yes.
For sure.
For sure. So it's just crazy. That's crazy that they do that, though. It doesn't surprise me, because again, they are like,
and they're clever.
They are. They're so clever.
They're like little toddlers running around.
They are, and they like do all kinds of crazy, because they have the way that their fingers are. I know they're able to like.
Yeah, they've got the opposable thumbs.
Yeah, so they can like do some crazy stuff. I've watched them do all kinds of things. So how long have you guys had the business here in Marion County?
Since 21.
Since 21. Okay.
Yep. So we went full time in 21, and have just been trucking along ever since. Yeah, it's been an adventure. It's definitely been. We've owe a lot to the community. We're really tied in with a couple networking groups, BNI, CEP, some of the builders associations we're trying to get a little more involved with, just so that we can touch more homes, more people, and make those connections.
You know, because I'm sure, like with the new construction, I'm sure you guys are dealing with that more and more, of like all kinds of things.
Oh yeah, yeah. It kind of covers everything. But with the construction, there's obviously animals that get pushed out of habitat, which it just happens with development. It's part of it. And when they get pushed out of habitat, then they're going to go to the next closest thing, whichever neighborhood that is, or whatever habitat that might be. But we also I got my Gopher Tortoise certification, so that we can handle the Gopher Tortoise relocation, which is bittersweet, because it's from a conservation aspect. I love to be able to help them. But it is, it's removing them from their home. But as we grow as a community, it's a part of it. So trying to be that in between the two, and making sure that the right steps are being taken and that they're being taken care of, and also whoever the client is, the contractor, making sure that they're able to follow all FWC regulations, they're compliant, they're making sure the permits are up to date and all that.
Yeah, no, that definitely can be a really big hurdle. Like, I mean, luckily, if you have agricultural zone property, usually it's not such a big, like, it is a big deal, but like, it happens, like dogs will get into them, things happen. It's not ideal. But when you're on a farm and you have a lot of property, sometimes you don't know those turtles are there, and unfortunately your dogs find them. It doesn't go very well. It's not ideal.
Tortoises and dogs don't get along.
No, they do not get along. And it's kind of like one of those things. They end up doing more damage to them, and then by the time anybody finds them, they're either about dead or dead. It's really not good. But on these like smaller properties, like, like even at my house, like I know they're there. I've seen them. I'm like, oh my God, here we go with these tortoises. It is what it is, though. I mean, like, they have to have a place to live. And, I grew up with them as a kid too in Volusia County, like on these like smaller acre lots, like, quarter acre to, a third of an acre lots. Like, and I live in Silver Spring Shores, and I mean, they're there. It's not good for the builder, but sometimes the builders do things they're not supposed to either, and they relocate them themselves, and they pick them up and they move them and move along. And
it can happen. One of the things that we've started to offer, though, is we call it a phase 1 or a due diligence survey. It's really meant for like peace of mind for someone who's either buying or selling a smaller lot or a larger property. But if you're just trying to determine, are there gopher tortoises that are active, because their burrows aren't always active. Sometimes they can leave other burrows behind if they decide to move, or they have what we call vacation homes, which maybe they haven't used in a very long time. And if they're not active, then that's okay. You can develop there and you don't have to worry about it. But you do got to make sure that you're following those guidelines and having someone check and make sure. So we've started to offer that service. It's a little more cost effective than going full survey and going full through with the permitting and everything. And it just lets people know, like, hey, here's what you have to deal with. We've talked with the builders as well and be like, okay, so this is where they are. You can build around them. There are ways to do that. There's also ways to relocate them on property. So there's different options out there. It's not just, hey, we've got to wipe everything clean and remove every single one of them. There's definitely ways to work within the environment and what's already there.
Yeah, I mean, like the Villages did that. They like made an entire field of nothing but tortoises.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how they dealt with that. I don't know. I mean, it's a large parcel, and that's where they put them.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. It must meet requirements, of course. I mean, they wouldn't have done it, but a lot of people enjoy going there and watching them, taking pictures, doing whatever. So I guess it just adds to the Villages.
Yeah, I guess it's it's one of the bonuses, the attractions.
Yeah, there you go. I know. I find it kind of funny when I drive past and I like see all these like older people out there like taking pictures or just like, and I'm like, okay. I don't know. You know, like I said,
I love tortoises, so I totally get it.
I do too. They are really
so
cool.
funny.
I like them too. And I grew up as a kid, like with them, like in my yard, or they would get like stuck in our fence and we'd have to move them. Or like the other day in the villages, sometimes this happens is they end up traveling, per usual, of course.
Yep.
And they end up on the road.
Oh gosh.
And I'm like, I'm on the golf cart, and we see this tortoise, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna move it onto the road. So like I pick it up and we like move it. And I'm like, you know, that's just how it kind of goes. I think Floridians anyway, we kind of are used to dealing with it.
You do what you got to do. And that's actually, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people are under the impression that you are not allowed to touch them, period.
Oh.
And that's not true. If they're in the road, it's directly on Fish and Wildlife's website. You can take them and move them in the direction that they were going so that they're out of harm's way. So you don't have to worry, you don't have to stop and just wait for them to pass. We can actively relocate.
Yeah.
Or not relocate, move over safely.
Safely. Because I mean, like, they honestly can cause accidents. I mean, their shells and things.
Oh,
they're
for
really
sure.
hard. It's not like, I mean, obviously you're going to end up killing them, but regardless, you can also mess up your car.
Yeah.
Or end up hitting somebody when you hit it, or whatever the case is.
Not good for the tortoise, not good for the truck or the car or whatever.
We gotta move it. We gotta move it. There was like this huge snapping turtle, and I was like, no. I'm like, we were driving and we thought it was a tortoise at first, and I went, no, we're gonna keep going.
There's actually a trick for those guys too, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay, go ahead and share it.
Oh, so if you hold on the top of the shell right behind their head, and on the bottom they can't actually reach you, they can't get their neck around.
Okay.
I don't advise your average person doing that. Another thing you can do is take a really large stick and they'll clap onto that and move it. But again, I say this with extreme caution because they can take off a finger. Like, that's no joke.
Yeah, no,
that's quite strong.
Yes, they are pretty wicked. That's like one of the ones that I'm like, I'll just drive around you.
Yep.
Like, we'll just keep
That's
going.
Probably a better move.
Yes. No, thank you. I'm good. You know, I'm okay with the tortoises. They're pretty. They go in their shell, and they're usually pretty
docile.
So yeah, they don't care that much. I mean, they'll hiss or whatever, and I kind of like laugh. It's kind of funny, but outside of that, they don't really do a lot of harm. Thank God, because if not, I don't know. I don't think I'd want to deal with them. No. You know what I mean? If they were as mean as the snapping turtles, which they're kind of intense, and they get so big.
They do get really big.
They get really big. Like, I've seen some
dinosaurs.
Yes, they really are. Like, those things. This was a really big one. I don't think I've seen a snapping turtle that big in a long time. I just don't. You don't see them, I guess, as
They're
much.
Cool animals, though.
They are cool.
Yeah.
They are really cool. I know, and a lot of people. I don't know. They always put all those. Aren't those turtles that are like the water turtles? Aren't those invasive because they're like the turtles that people?
There are. So we have red-eared sliders.
Those
are invasive, and they get really confused with, like, we have a native cooter that people will confuse them with. But yeah, snapping turtles are native, and we have a lot of native turtles too.
No, I know. We were over at Eden's Beach yesterday, and I was like, the turtle. I'm pretty sure that turtle was like the ones that you buy at the store.
Oh yeah.
That you like people just like throw out.
Could be.
It looked like it anyway, because I don't know what. To me, they look a lot different than the ones you see like in Silver Springs. Like they're much more yellow, and they're like they look different. This one had like the red markings. It looked like the ones at the pet store. I was like,
I'm sure.
I'm like, no.
They're everywhere. I've seen them out a lot.
I know, it's kind of a problem. We have a lot of invasive species, I think.
We do. Yeah, Florida definitely is a huge problem here.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. What does really Ocala have, like Marion County in particular?
As far as invasives go?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Well, the basics, I mean, anywhere where there's people, there's going to be rats. And so rats are actually invasive. They're not from like a black rat that we get everywhere. Those are a non-native species. Then you've got like pigeons and sparrows. Those are also invasive. But as far up here, everyone talks about the macaques. Okay. The rhesus macaques are not native. Those are a pretty common one that are here. Some people will argue there's an argument for coyotes being invasive versus being naturalized. There is a natural movement that they've made from western states and come this way. And the argument being that as the red wolf was taken out, they filled that niche. So that just depends on who you talk to, but it's at this point they're naturalized. They say the same thing about armadillos, that they've been naturalized into the area. I've also heard that we have agamas up here now. When they're non-breeding or they're females, they look like really big anoles, but when the males are breeding, they're like bright orange and bright blue. They're really pretty.
Okay.
But they are not native. Yeah, a lot of the reptiles from down south are like slowly kind of moving this way.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see what things look like in the next like 10, 20 years.
Yeah, no, I'm interested with that because like my family's originally from Naples, so of course I hear about like the anaconda. Like I hear about all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Also, like I know about the iguanas not being native either, and like all of those things. So I'm familiar with like down south with like invasive, and there's a lot. It's kind of a really big problem down there that we have to deal with now. At like South Florida, and people have to deal with it. It's the thing. But up here is kind of, I find, not as extreme, I guess. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, and a lot of it's climate based.
Yeah.
So we get freezing winters, whereas down south they don't. But what they found is that some of these species are becoming hardier and hardier. So I mean, we'll see. I don't think we're ever going to have a boa constrictor up here, but I know tegus. They found tegus this far north. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting.
It's going to be interesting. It's just getting so populated down there too.
You like with people?
Just with people, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, things tend to get really creative when they have to.
When they have to deal with people.
Yeah, when they have to and they're trying to find more space to adapt, and that's just kind of how it goes. Like the whole coyote thing was pretty interesting. I've listened to podcasts about it. I really like science in general. So anything that's like, I don't know, science based, I think is pretty interesting, whether it's with animals, humans, whatever the case is. So I know with the coyotes, it is kind of interesting. They are invasive to a degree, but at the same time, they kind of do help keep down a lot of other species.
They definitely have an ecological role, right? Like their number one prey is rodents. So I mean, like if you don't want rats, coyotes are not a bad fit, but they do eat cats.
Yeah, and they do like cats and dogs a lot.
Yeah. So there's a give and take.
Yeah, no, it's definitely can be.
It's a population management is what it needs to be.
That's true. It's no different than, they reintroduced the wolves too, which is going to be interesting. I don't know, they keep playing with things, and at the end of the day, I think it just makes things, I don't know, complicated. It's kind of like, it is what it is. So on the Facebook group, I did ask like a couple questions, and so I just want to kind of go over those and see what your thoughts were. So one person asked, they just relocated to Ocala and they have about 35 acres, which I know when you have, like we were talking about, I grew up on 5 acres, even 3 acres, you end up having a lot of things that come on your property, even if you don't want them to. And so I guess they've been having like a really bad invasive armadillo problem on their property. And obviously if you have horses, having a broken horse ankle or a leg is definitely, that's it for the horse. More than likely you're going to have to put them down. So I understand why they are extremely worried about these armadillo holes. So I guess my question for you is, how do people deal with them?
So armadillos are one that we get questions on all the time. And a lot of our job, as you might imagine, is seasonal. So right now we are seeing that increase in armadillos, and their range will vary depending on the season. So in the summer, they're going to be moving around a lot more. It's breeding, it's warmer, there's more food sources, so they're going to be moving a lot more. They can go up to 30 acres. They can migrate, roam around. Whereas in the winter, their range is a lot smaller. They use less burrows. They're going to be, more centralized. So this time of year, we do get a lot of armadillo. And really the best way to handle armadillos is to trap the nuisance armadillos, the ones that are really causing problems, and then try to protect your property in whatever way you can. If you have the ability, exclusion is number one going to be your best option always. So what that means is sealing any entry points. It can mean a house, it can mean a yard from entry for that animal. And in this case with the armadillo, if you have the ability, what we would want to do is we'd want to actually add a lower fence. If you have a fenced yard, we want to add a fence that goes even further. It's going to block that bottom portion and it would go down. So you'd want to dig it down about 6 inches. We also have a product called Dig Defense that we can put in the ground that helps keep them from digging into it. It's an underground fence is really what it is. And that's really effective for armadillos, but obviously that's a lot of material going into surrounding your entire property. That's your best option, is exclusion, because you're being preventative with the problem, or proactive rather. The other option is doing a trapping, and that's a reactive response. So you'd be coming in trying to catch the nuisance armadillos, and the problem with armadillos is they're not baitable, and I don't know if that's because they just don't have a big brain, their brain functioning's a little low, or if it's something about that species. But you'll see online on all the DIY websites, they'll say, fill a stocking with dirt and worms, or rotten apples. There's all sorts of old wives' tales on how to bait in an armadillo, and it's just in our industry, it's just well known that really the only way to trap armadillos is with the scent of other armadillos. So there's specific traps that are scented, kind of like a cast iron pan. The longer it gets used and the more that's in it, the more effective it is. So there's these traps that we have that really smell like armadillo, and they've just gotten better with age. And the more armadillos we trap, the faster they work, the more likely they are to work, the more armadillos we can catch. It can be very timely. It can take a lot of time because they have to eventually wander kind of into it, find it, smell it, and go in. And sometimes, because we camera monitor everything, sometimes they'll go right up to it, sniff it, and say meh, and kind of leave and wander away. We do have some methods of funneling them into those areas, but usually it can take anywhere from 48 hours to 2 to 3 weeks. We actually just had one that it took us 4 months to catch one armadillo, and that's not based around anything, but that armadillo decided it would be there one day, and then it wanted to be 40 acre. It was a single quarter-acre lot, decided it wanted to be on the complete opposite side of that neighborhood the next day. So you have to be able to pattern these animals. You have to be able to learn when they are in the areas they are. We'll trap for them. We'll get the nuisance ones, and then after we trap, we put down a deterrent. The deterrent we use is not one that you buy from Tractor Supply or from Lowe's, or it's a commercial grade deterrent, and it's all based around olfactory. We don't use any chemicals, no poisons, no toxins. It's all essential oils and natural just scents, and a lot of them are predator urine and things like that. The armadillos don't want to be around, and it works well as a deterrent. It does not work when the animal is habituated to the area. So that's why we say get the nuisance ones out and then use this as a defense around the property, and you can handle it that way.
The armadillos, I feel like that would
They're
be
tricky.
a hard one.
Believe it or not, which is funny because they seem like such a basic animal, but they can be one of the trickier ones. We've got a system for it. It can just take a little bit of time.
Yeah, because I mean, their diet is just not like, I feel like they're not super food driven. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, the thing is that their food is everywhere. People will say, oh, we'll wipe out the grubs in our yard. We'll put down a grub, like something that'll kill all the grubs. And a lot of pest control companies will do that. And it might be effective short term, but they don't only eat grubs. They're going to eat worms. They eat beetles. They eat just about any invertebrate that they can get into. So you can kill all the grubs, but there's still earthworms in your soil. And if you kill all of the bugs in your soil, then your soil dies. So it's really about finding a way to mitigate it.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun adventure. Yeah, that's a fun one. Because I mean, you know, like coyotes or other things like that, I feel like in some ways are just easier to, like, well, not really coyotes, they're a pain to capture, but like something like that. Yeah, something more like that. That's more food driven. Like
yes, raccoons, possums, very food driven. They'll go for just about anything. They have a sweet tooth too.
What do you typically catch them with? I'm just curious.
We'll use cat food is really good, but if we have cats in the neighborhood or there's something that we're trying to not trap, I believe it or not, Hostess cupcakes work really well.
I love it. That's hilarious. So the other question that I got was, what's something you wish the general public knew about your industry?
Exclusion. I really, really wish that, and I tell all my friends who buy new houses, it's the first thing that I did when we moved into our house. Preventative measures will save you so much time, money, and just stress down the road. If you seal up your home preventatively, it's going to save you from the headache of something. 80% of homeowners deal with wildlife entry at some point in their home ownership. So it'll save you the headache of having that animal in there, the possible attic recreation or restoration that'll be needed. Insulation might need to be pulled out or blown back in. Ductwork might be ripped. Electric might be chewed. There's so many ways that wildlife can cause and just a complete wreak havoc on your attic. And stopping that before it becomes an issue by sealing them out is 100% the best way to protect your investment, which is your home. I really wish that was more widely known, but you know, we're a reactive society, so we usually call when there's a problem, but preventative measures are definitely the best way to handle that.
Well, I think the other thing too is, like, if you buy a new construction home, I think everybody thinks that all those preventative measures have already been done, and in reality that may not be true. So what are some things, if somebody's like recently bought a house, that you think they should do to kind of just make sure?
Yeah, and that's actually, it's funny, we get calls like that, like, this home is only 2 years old. Well, again, it has nothing to do with the age, it has nothing to do with the cleanliness, it has nothing to do with anything other than an animal looking for a resource, and that resource being a shelter. So those homes, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the construction. It's just the way that the wildlife work, and construction's not looking for anything that's 3/8 of an inch or smaller. You know, they're not looking for these entry points that we're trained to see, that we're used to seeing. And even beyond that, a lot of these animals have chewing mouth parts for a reason. So like squirrels and rats, rodentia means not like ever growing. Their teeth don't stop growing. So they have to constantly chew. So it's nothing for them to chew into the side of a home if they need to get into an attic or whatever resource they may be getting at. So it has nothing to do with the age of the home or even the quality of the home. It's just about finding those entry points and making sure that they're fully sealed.
So like what would some of those maybe be like on a new home?
Yeah, so like an eave return. So that's where that soffit meets shingle. That's definitely a big one. Check your AC lines where the AC goes up into the attic. A lot of times they can get chewed, or there may be a small gap there. And again, they need 1/4 of an inch. So we seal everything 3/8 of an inch or smaller. Sometimes if someone's been having a big issue with other pests like roaches and things like that, we'll go even smaller. But 3/8 of an inch is usually a good rule of thumb. And then on your actual roof itself, any of the vents that are coming out, making sure those are sealed, and not just sealed with like window screening. You'd want to make sure that it's galvanized mesh, or we use steel for any of the eave returns, trim coil, things like that. But when you do seal things, here's another caveat, is making sure if it's supposed to breathe, like your roof vents, they need to be able to breathe. If it's a plumbing vent, you have to be careful. We're making sure that it's still able to vent. Dryer vents do not seal at all, or if you do, it needs to be done in a way that it can still release anything that needs to come up, because if you get that dryer vent, if the lint builds up, that's a fire hazard. But yeah, anything like that, that's really what we're looking for.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious because, like, I do sell new construction homes, and I do get people that come from other states, and they, like, freak out when they're in Florida because they're like, there's bugs and animals and,
Frogs is the one that I get the most from people from out of state. Yeah,
I hate them. And I'm from here, and I hate them. When we were in Deltona, there's that invasive, like, Cuban frog, I think
Yeah, we've got those here, too.
That are, like, white, see-through, like,
Cuban tree frogs are the big ones.
Yeah, and they're white and see-through. Oh, they're so disgusting. They're so gross. I hate those things. And we used to have so many of them at this house because it was, like, on, like, the back portion of the property was, like, a lake, but also they had put, like, this koi pond thing in the front, and so it just attracted all these frogs. And so eventually we got rid of that, and we got rid of the frogs, but I hate them. Yeah. Like, I despise them. Like, I have, like, a phobia of them. Some people have phobias of, like, snakes, other things. I don't like frogs. It's not
well, I mean, Cuban tree frogs isn't a bad one to be concerned about either, because they are slightly toxic. So, like, if your dog gets a hold of them, it's not going to kill them, but it's going to be something where they might be foaming at the mouth a little bit. And then we make sure that we have got them all around our house, and I make sure my kids do not touch them because they can get on your hands, and if, like, you rub your eyes or anything like that, it does burn.
That's just like you said, a better reason to get rid of them. I don't like them. And then, like, the last question that I got was probably what's, like, been the most dangerous experience that you've had, or, like, most dangerous thing you've had to, relocate.
Yeah. So we try to make sure, obviously, everything we're doing, like, safety is a huge thing on our team. Like, we teach safety, all good safety measures. We use PPE when necessary. We try to make sure that everyone is protective equipment.
Okay.
We try to make sure that everyone is fully trained on things like zoonotics, safe wildlife handling, all of that good stuff we make sure we cover. So we don't want to enter a situation knowing like this is a dangerous situation. However, wild animals, with that in our job industry, there's definitely going to be some situations that are a little more hazardous than others. And typically it's when you're within close conduct or close quarters of an animal. Just recently, I think probably the one that comes to mind, we had a call from the rehab Rescuing Ocala Wildlife that a woman had found a fox that was in her front yard and it was panting, it was not moving. All signs showed, okay, this animal has distemper or maybe rabies or some sort of disease that it's about to die. Well, she had brought the fox in her home and just, it happens. I mean, I understand she was trying to do the right thing and she did call the right people. So she's trying to do the right thing. She put it in her bathtub because it was not moving. Well, by the time I got there to help bring it to Rescuing Ocala Wildlife so that they could euthanize because it was a better quality for that animal. It was dying. By the time I got there, that fox was not asleep in the bathtub. That fox was very much awake and very much alert and very much unhappy with me being there. So I had to call in one of our technicians to help me out so that we could have two hands on this and actually go into the bathroom with the fox, not sure what it was going to do, knowing it had some disease. We had to pull it, get it into the trap, bring it to the rehab so that they could assess it, and they did determine that it had distemper. And so unfortunately that's not curable and it did need to be euthanized. But yeah, situations like that do arise. Those situations do happen. We do venomous snakes as well. So whenever those situations happen, we just make sure that we're taking the right precautions.
Yeah, I feel like almost those animals that have some type of disease that's a much more stressful thing. I mean, the snakes are stressful, yes, but I feel like you kind of know that the snake is going to be like trying to bite you. I think we all know that. Yeah. But sometimes when those animals have any of those diseases, you really don't exactly...
Unpredictable.
Very unpredictable. Yeah. You have no idea what they're going to do, and they're usually 10 times more strong than what they normally are because they're so stressed out and all of the above. So that doesn't sound fun to me.
I think it takes a special kind of person to find the excitement and enjoyment out of that. We've got a great team.
Yes, I'm sure. So speaking about your team, so how many people do you have on your team and what do they do?
We have 5 and they're all absolutely phenomenal assets to the team and we're actually hiring. So we're looking for a 6th technician right now. We've got Mary, who's our office manager, and then we've got Cory and Dylan, who are our field technicians, and we're looking for another field technician. Cory's team manager. So he's rocking it. He does a really great job with keeping everything together. And then my husband is the operations manager, Tim. So he handles a lot of our larger exclusions. We go statewide with commercial exclusions. So that might be a Target, a Lowe's, Home Depot, dealing with rodents or bees. We do a lot of bee removal and cutouts, and we go statewide for that. But all of our residential stuff is within an hour or so of Marion. So that's kind of what the rest of the team is handling. And yeah, we're looking to hire. So if anyone's out there and looking for a job that is never the same, every day is different, we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, what are the requirements like for them to work with you?
Being a problem solver is huge because you never know what the day is going to bring. We have standards, we have a handbook, we can train you. We have a pretty intensive training program, but there's always going to be that level of unknown. And so being able to adapt to those situations, also understanding that it is a physical job. So it is going to be especially with the exclusion work, you're going to be out, you're going to be adding things to a home, you're going to be sealing areas. It's not quite construction, but it does have some level of tool usage and that physical element. So someone who is active, looking for something that's different, who loves wildlife, that's definitely important. All of us are conservationists at heart. Those are what we're looking for in a person.
Okay, so they don't have to have like any specific
No,
degree?
we'll do all the training. Yeah, no degree required. I think most people on our team do not have a degree, which is great. Doesn't change anything. If you do have a degree, awesome. But just someone who's looking to grow, because we're definitely growing.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I don't really think is there a ton of people that do what you do? I don't think so.
There's definitely other companies that handle wildlife, but ones who handle wildlife specifically and solely, which is kind of what makes us unique, is that we are specialists in what we do. We're not a pest control company, and that's nothing against pest control companies. I have a lot of great friends who run pest control, and we work really well hand in hand. So if there's a situation with insects that I can't handle, because I do not do spiders, I do not do cockroaches, I will do just about everything else. But that's where I draw my line. That's where I get them involved. But if at this point, they're like, wildlife's not our thing, you handle all that. And it's a really great marriage. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. My dad was a pest control operator for like 20 years. So nice. I've heard all of the crazy things. And sometimes he would have to call people in to come and do whatever. They'd be calling him. And he's like, look, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, you got to have somebody else come in and do this. I think the craziest thing my dad did was he caught this huge river rat that was like causing like this big ruckus and because he did this in South Florida originally. And it was like, he said the thing was like the size of like a medium-sized dog.
Yeah.
That he ended up catching. And it took like 20 glue traps to be able to like capture this one rat. One, not a bunch of them. One. Yeah. Only one. It's like crazy. I'm like, good God. And my dad's like, I'll never forget how big that rat was. He's like, that's the biggest rat I've ever seen ever. And he said, I've dealt with a lot of rodents, a lot of things. That was big. I was like, oh God, Dad. I don't know. Special things go out to pest control operators. I don't know how they do their job. Like, it's pretty nasty sometimes. The things my dad's told me, it's just not my cup of tea. I'm glad I do real estate and not that, because that wouldn't be super great. So do you have anything exciting coming for this year or next year?
Yeah, so like I said, we've gotten our Gopher Tortoise permit up, so we are going to be really pushing forward with that. Anyone in real estate, I'd love to hear from, because that's just something I really think I can help with. A lot of agents who are just unknown about a lot, or buyers unknown, they just want to get that peace of mind. We're going to be doing a ribbon cutting. We've been in our physical office since last April, I believe, so it's been a little over a year, but we're going to officially have a ribbon cutting this year with the CEP, which I'm really excited about. I think that's happening in June. And then, just always looking forward to see what happens next. We never really know what's around the corner, so it'll be exciting.
Well, that's awesome. So towards the end of my podcast, what I always ask everybody is, if somebody's looking to do what you do, what would you tell them?
If you're looking to do what I do, it definitely takes someone who's passionate about wildlife, someone who's driven and interested in creating something of their own, and it's just ready for adventure. Someone who doesn't thrive in a day-to-day that looks the same, that's looking for something that is just variable. You can get a degree, like I have a degree in wildlife, and that's been great, but you don't necessarily need it. There's a lot of information out there. NACOA is a really great industry. That's we're a part of them. They are the standards for wildlife control in the United States, and they are phenomenal. So that's a really great resource to look at. They're on Facebook. They have a website. And just get out and get some experience. You want to start with a company like we work with, or pest control is a good one to work with too, or just get some sort of wildlife behavior background. That would be a good place to start.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting. What are like some challenges that maybe you face that, somebody it would be helpful to them? Like some things that you faced dealing with what you do? As
a business owner, it's definitely, wildlife has always been my passion. So that's always come pretty naturally to me. But as a business owner, I have no background in business at all. So it's been a huge learning curve. But getting involved with other business owners in the community is the best way that I've found to go about it. You have other people to rely on to ask questions, to help guide you, even if they're not in the same industry. There's just so much knowledge out there. And everyone, at least in this community, is so willing to share, which is awesome. And that's been a huge resource for us.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, Marion County, most people for the most part usually are pretty friendly and usually pretty helpful. You just have to find those like people that suit your niche or who are open to you. But I feel like with your line of work, there's always like a need. Animals are always going to be a problem.
They're not going anywhere anytime soon. Except for maybe in your attic. But
to make a home. I know I saw a video that you guys posted. I think was it with a raccoon or something in an attic or some, I don't know, you posted
I'm sure. Mary has been rocking the social media, so I've completely handed it over to her. She does a really good job.
Yeah, there was like something and I was like, this is like crazy. It was like
it's always crazy. It's always crazy. Something.
I kind of can relate to that with real estate too. It's always something. Yeah. It's never it just never goes smooth. It goes the way you think it should. It's definitely not like a mundane job
Yeah.
of like it changes. You know, you get a phone call, you know, so-and-so went and bought a car. Well, you mean so-and-so went and bought a car. We're closing in 3 days.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and that stuff really does happen. I've luckily never experienced that, but I have dealt with some, you know, things. An AC went out like right before closing or after closing, and they didn't do a final walkthrough because they were in town, and I don't do final walkthroughs unless they're with me, because if something goes wrong, I don't want to be liable for it. And so that happens, and so there's like always something, like you, kind of like with you guys.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Always something going on. Well, I appreciate your time and you
absolutely.
coming on and sharing with what you guys do. So if you guys hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and look forward to next week for another great one.